Now, it is very difficult to try to explain the word Nawal or the Mesoamerican term for sorcerer. It is very difficult, particularly because there have been 500 years worth of misinformation, maybe 100 plus years of really erroneous literature out there as far as what a Nawal is. We have people like Carlos Castañeda, people like Terence McKenna, who have tried to define what a familiar is, who have tried to kind of take possession of those definitions to use people. There have been 500 years worth of folk legends that some of them make sense, some of them do not make sense. And so I'm going to try to approach this episode from the most academic perspective as I can. Particularly because I believe that the term Nawal and the concept of a Nawal is certainly worthwhile explaining. There's not a lot of literature written about this because academia does not like to talk about magic, whatever that means. It is such a huge term that it is just difficult to try to grab our arms around it, especially because it just takes on so many different topics nowadays. There's alchemy, which some alchemical principles do in fact make sense. There's also tarot, there's divination. Just magic is such a huge umbrella term, and it is sometimes easy to disvalidate because you just kind of put everything you don't understand into one basket. And of course, if you think that one basket is all one thing, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to make sense. But then Nagual, for the people from Mesoamerica, is certainly a concept that was very deep to their hearts. It was part of their tradition, it was part of their religion, and so therefore I believe that it is worthwhile explaining. So thank you so much for coming here to Mesoamerica. Welcome. This is your place for the occult knowledge of the people from Mesoamerica, magic and myth. Thank you very much, and let's go. Okay, since there has been so much misinformation regarding the Nagual, I am going to use academic resources from the earliest periods, which nowadays a lot of our modern archaeologists still use to this day because they were there the earliest and they were able to get there some type of through factual information as to what certain terms are. The person that I'm talking about right now, it will be Professor de Brujo. Mr. de Brujo went to the Maya Quiche area to try to get a definition as to what was a Nagual. If you remember from the previous episodes, the Maya Quiche were the ones that gave Fray Jimenez a definition of what was to be a Maya. Then he found the Popol Vuh and was able to transcribe that into Spanish. And so the Maya Quiche area, southern Guatemala, has been a treasure trove for us that love Mesoamerican knowledge. And so therefore, Monsieur de Brujo was able to go to the Maya Quiche and he went to try to get a definition as to what a Nagual was. And this is his definition. He said, "It is not merely the belief of a guardian spirit, and it was not only a remnant of the pagan beliefs of these people, which has been diluted by Christian teachings. Nagualism was a powerful secret society that is stretched to various languages, cultures, mystical rites, necromancy, and occult doctrines that evoked an intense emotion." Monsieur de Brujo certainly knew what he was talking about. This is one of the best definitions of what a Nagual is. And we can dissect it very, very clearly as to what a Nagual is. Because the concept of Nagualism today, for us, it is very much associated with drugs. It is very much associated with Carlos Castañeda going on trips with Mezcalito, whatever that was. With Terence McKenna trying to establish relationships with compounds of drugs and therefore going into supernatural worlds that he claimed to have rulership over or claimed to have control over them. And so therefore this definition of Ministerio de Brujo, it is certainly a great definition. The reason why is because it really covers the multiple uses of the Nagual for the Maya people. For example, it uses it as a religion. It was certainly a religion. It was certainly as a type of, what does he call it? A mystical rite. We covered a little bit about the mystical rites in the Maria Sabina episode. It talks about necromancy. Yes, the Nagual was certainly used as a way to try to talk to the dead. We see it in the movie Coco. We'll speak a little bit more about that as well. And then we have occult doctrines that evoked intense emotion. We also see it very much so with Maria in the episode of Maria Sabina. They combine a system of chant, music, and drugs to try to establish a relationship with the familiar, to try to either cure people or to reveal certain type of knowledge, or to cure psychological trauma. This religion or practice of Nahualism was certainly used heavily by the people from Mesoamerica, not only prior to the Spanish, but also after the Spanish, to these very days still used. Be very aware of scammers, but to this very day, it is still the religion and the tradition of Nahualism is still used to this very day. Now that we covered what a Nahual is, let's look at a little bit into the nature of what a Nahual is. Now, for this particular definition, I'm going to use an anthropologist called George Foster. George Foster created the following definition, and this is the definition that is still used by a lot of archaeologists today. And the definition is the following. It says the logical procedure was to use firstly the assumption of a male fairy or fortune, and the idea derived from the animal companion. The Nahual was originally a wizard that was able to transform. This was to apply to those who believe are capable of metamorphosis. Now, this is also a very useful definition because to this very day, there are people, I met them, that they go on trips, mushroom trips to Oaxaca, or they go on peyote trips to Real de Catorce in San Luis Potosí, and they say that they're able to run like deer, or hide themselves like chipmunks, or run like jaguars, and sometimes they wake up from their trip and there's a butchered animal in front of them, left as a testimony that they were the jaguars and that they were able to kill this animal and they were able to cook it and have tacos of a particular animal. This is a long-standing tradition which some of us have, who knows if it has any merit, who knows if it doesn't. But traditionally, to this very day, drugs are used in conjunction with those particular traditions. As in the case of Maria Sabina, which was used in a very useful, a very healthy way, or in a just hippie, wanna be free, capitalist, weird way, in which someone sells you some drugs and you want to try some drugs just to get high and try to have an experience. There has to be a shaman involved. A lot of those people that said that they transformed themselves into deer and jaguars, they had a shaman. They were able to establish a relationship with a particular spirit, and so I don't discount their stories, but I also cannot believe them because I am a scientist, or at least that's my everyday job. And so for me to believe that they were able to transform themselves into another animal, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But who knows what happened. Now, but these types of transformations between Nahuales and familiars, or just it's familiars in the spirit world that are able to do favors from them, has been adopted by many different pieces of literature. Today, the biggest one I think is the Disney movie Coco. Coco was able to use the concept of the Nahual and transform them into alebrije. Now, in this movie, the cat or the dog is able to transform themselves into a particular familiar and is able to help, in this case, the protagonist, the small boy, to travel through the world of the dead. Now, this is what Monsieur de Brujo means by necromantic works. Because yes, the Nagual is supposed to guide a particular person through the world of the dead. We have a kind of a similar tradition, kind of in Dante's Inferno, or other different, classical pieces, where the protagonist, let's say Dante, has Virgil to guide him through the world of hell. Or I think he goes up to purgatory. I don't know, maybe he reaches Paradiso. I don't know. But anyway, in Coco, the dog certainly guides Miguel, I think is the boy's name, to the world of the dead, to be able to accomplish the things that he needs to do so that he can go back to his family. Now, a lot of these aspects are very Mexican. The way in which guilt is used, or the way in which the family is trying to control Miguel's life, or is able to find an affinity to certain type of arts, like in this case music. It is a very Mexican thing to try to relate it to a certain not real world. The world of spiritualism, it is certainly very real for Mexicans to this day, and it has been so since even before the time of the Spanish. It is clearly written in archaeological ruins, in cups or other archaeological remains, where the tradition of having a Nahual or a familiar spirit has always been there. I don't recommend it because, to be perfectly honest, having a Nahual is difficult. As I explained in the vampire magic episode, if you wanna listen to that, it is not easy to have it, but it is easy. It is easier with certain parameters, and this leads me to my next academic resource. The next one is by a guy named Benson. Benson went once again to the Quiche Maya to try to get information from them as to what a Nahual was. Mr. Saller was able to get 5 definitions. Number 1, that the familiar is some type of animal. Number 2, that the familiar is somehow attached to time. Number 3, that the familiar is attached to a place. Number 4, that the familiar is attached to the stars. And number 5, that the familiar is attached to the earth. Now, Mr. Saller at this point cannot make that much sense of these definitions. They're just hard to understand. He says they're very disconjointed, they don't really quite make sense. But if you have been paying attention to this channel, I've been watching the last episodes, it will make sense to you. This is why. At that time when Mr. Saller was able to get these definitions, we did not have the Maya writing decoded. We did not have the understanding of the Dresden Codex as we have today. The Dresden Codex is a time-keeping codex in which we were able to deduce how the Maya were able to learn time, how were they able to track it, and how did that reflect on their religious lives. And this is exactly what the Quiche Maya are talking about. Now, Mr. Saller, he did not have this stuff, but you do. And since you do, you're able to decode what the heck are these Maya people trying to tell them. Number 1, it is an animal. Yes, like in the movie Coco, the familiar, or the Nahual, is able to transform him or herself into another creature in another dimension. It can be the realm of the dead. There are multiple dimensions in the Maya world. And physics is kind of proving that this reality that we're able to perceive, see, hear, smell, taste is not the only reality. There are multiple different dimensions within this dimension. But anyway, the Maya already knew that even back then. I don't know, don't ask me how they knew that. But they certainly knew that there were other creatures that they were able to contact in those other dimensions, like the realm of the dead with Coco, to perform certain deeds, to either get information from the dead, kind of a necromantic type of magic, or they were able to contact familiars to be able to get information as to what was over there, or what happened to a certain person. Please find an item. So the magic of the Nahual can be used in many different ways. Now, but the animal is related to the time. When they say, then the Quiche Maya are saying that the Nagual, one of the definitions of the Nagual is a Nagual of time, is because it is attached to the calendar. Now, if you watch the Vampire Magic episode, you will know what I'm talking about. If you were born, for example, in the month of the bat, then therefore you have an affinity with the vampire. And therefore, your familiar, your Nagual, can be a vampire. It has certain uses, they're explained in the video. Many different types of Naguales, based on their element, have a particular certain type of use. But fortunately, most people are not only born with an affinity to the north. Some of them have a combination of between north and east, so therefore they're able to do magic or contact in Nagual that is dark with the north or light with the east or powerful with the south. It depends on when you were born. But this is what the Quiche Maya are trying to tell Salar. They're trying to tell him that there are they didn't quite explain they're associated, because I don't think that was explained to Salar, but they're certainly, those definitions are certainly associated based on what we now know about the Maya. Number 3. The place familiar. It's a little difficult to explain, particularly from academic resource. So I'm going to give you my personal definition. I don't know if you have been to a remote place, particularly where there are trees or there's a river. You will start feeling different. You'll start feeling out of place. Like there's something there, but you don't really quite know what's there. You look around, there are no animals, nothing moves. But you somehow feel that there is something there. And sometimes, maybe, even maybe, you may hear a voice. Like, what are you doing here? Like, who are you? Like, and then you can answer questions. And sometimes you hear in your mind that those questions are being answered. You start having a relationship and a conversation, if you're lucky, with something that is there. Now, as if there are animals in other regions, like, I don't know, shall we say maybe an ant in the desert or a monkey in the jungle. There are animals in certain regions based on where do they usually belong, where can they find their food. Now, it is not that difficult to try to assume that there is a certain type of entity in certain places that we are somehow not aware of. These may be just a theory of mine, but I have heard voices in weird, unknown places, and sometimes I establish a relationship, sometimes I don't. There are certain ways to try to establish that communication better than others. No, it's not drugs. My dad has been training me since I was a very young boy in this type of traditions. And so it is easier for someone that grew up with this tradition to try to establish a relationship with something that may be there or may not be there, or maybe just in your head. And some other people have to just short circuit it with the use of drugs, as in the case was with Terence McKenna, or with the people that Maria Sabina helped out, or with Carlos Castaneda, if it was Carlos Castaneda writing those books. And so there is a certain type of inkling that humans have with certain types of entities that may or may not exist. Okay, now going to the Earth familiar, or the Earth Nagual. Now, I have never heard of anybody alive, or that I have ever met, that has ever had a communication with an Earth Nagual. Now, this is like huge. Communicating with the Nagual of the Earth, meaning the spirit of the Earth, and is able to establish a relationship with the Earth Nagual is huge. According to my theory, one of my theories, that guy up there, Pakal, the astronaut guy, according to the History Channel, he had a relationship with the Nawal of Venus. I don't know how he did, but it seems that he, according to the stela, he has a relationship with the spirit of Venus, and is able to gather information with Venus, is able to create life because of Venus and the cycles of Venus, is able to know its time, its movement. And so these are very difficult Nawales to obtain. Now, touching that a little bit on the concept of establishing a relationship with, let's say, the Nagual of Venus. This type of relationship is extremely useful. I'm pretty sure it's extremely difficult, because owning or having a Nagual is difficult. So you don't want to just like kind of like Pokemon, like be getting like Nawal is from everywhere. You cannot do that. It is kind of like adopting a dog or adopting a horse or an elephant. It's just huge. It is a huge responsibility. You have to feed it, you have to establish a relationship with them, you have to communicate with them, and you need to keep them close. Otherwise they can get mad and kind of turn on you and something bad may happen. Or they can just go away and say, okay, this relationship is over. And a lot of the Nagual is particularly based on the information that we have on archaeological remains of what we're able to read. Nahuales are not usually nice. They're not like the nice dog that is going to follow you around for a bone. Nahuales are usually mean. They're wild animals, kind of like taming a dog or a wild dog or taming a wild horse. They are difficult animals to maintain. They're difficult to tame, but they could be potentially useful for particular people. So therefore, that is why sorcerers only are the ones able to do it. That's why witches were the ones only able to do it in Europe, because they had the time and they had the guts to do this type of work, and they were able to get some type of rewards or some type of benefit from this relationship. And so that is my theory as to what the Earth Nagual is. There's a little bit of legend there involved, so don't really quote me academically on that one. I'm just trying to give you as much information as I possibly can based on what, or at least try to formulate a definition of what was it that the academic sources are talking about. Because now we have so much more information, we're able to piece things together, and I don't think anybody today will ever give you that information today. Particularly because PhD archaeologists are not going to give you that type of definition, because they're very resilient to try to talk about magic. Even though they know that it is that the life of the people from Mesoamerica was directly related to magic, whatever magic definition you want to give to whatever magic is, but it is very difficult to try to marry one on the other. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a very difficult episode to try to write, because this is a difficult topic. But unfortunately, I was able to find Souther's book, and I was able to give you an academic perspective of what a familiar is, what a Nagual is. And I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, please like, please comment. I would love to hear your comments about this. One of you guys requested this video. I hope you liked it. Thank you very much and have a great one. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. Bye-bye.